ఈ వీడియోలో నువ్వు డేటా సైంటిస్ట్ గా జాబ్ తెచ్చుకుని మోర్ దాన్ 1 crore per year ఎలా ఎర్న్ చేయాలో డిస్కస్ చేయబోతున్నాము. ఈ వీడియోలో మనతో పాటు ఉన్నది డాక్టర్ ఆశీర్వాద్. తన జార్ఖండ్ లోపల ఇంగ్లీష్ మీడియం స్కూల్ వెళ్ళినంత మార్బుల్ ప్రదేశంలో పుట్టి పెరిగి ఈరోజు అమెరికాలో వన్ ఆఫ్ ద బిగ్గెస్ట్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ ఫర్మ్స్ లోపల డేటా సైంటిస్ట్ గా పనిచేస్తున్నాడు. అండ్ ఎస్, తను ఇయర్లీ మోర్ దాన్ 1 crore ఎర్న్ చేస్తున్నాడు. ఈ వీడియోని స్టార్టింగ్ నుంచి ఎండింగ్ దాకా చూసావంటే అసలు డేటా సైంటిస్ట్ అంటే ఏంటి, అసలు వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారు, అండ్ నువ్వు కూడా ఇలాంటి రోల్ లోపల ఒక హై పేయింగ్ జాబ్ ఎలా క్రాక్ చేయాలి, ఇవన్నీ నీకు క్లియర్ గా అర్థమవుతాయి. అండ్ వీడియో లాంగ్ ఉంది కాబట్టి సెట్టింగ్స్ లోకి వెళ్ళి ప్లేబ్యాక్ స్పీడ్ ని 1.5x పెట్టుకున్నావు అంటే నువ్వు తొందరగా నేర్చుకుంటావు అండ్ టైం కూడా సేవ్ అవుతుంది. ఇలానే ఇంకెంతో మంది ఎక్స్పర్ట్స్ నీ కెరియర్ ని బూస్ట్ చేయడానికి ఇదే ఛానల్ రాబోతున్నారు. సో అవన్నీ కూడా మిస్ అవ్వద్దు అంటే ఇప్పటి కింద సబ్స్క్రైబ్ బటన్ క్లిక్ చేసి లెట్స్ స్టార్ట్ ది వీడియో. వెన్ ఐ స్పెసిఫిక్లీ లుక్ ఎట్ దిస్ ఫీల్డ్, ఐ హియర్ 3 very common terms or 3 common designations, I would say: data analyst, data scientist, and data engineer. So from a student's perspective, when I'm looking at these terms, I don't understand what each of them are. Can you just give me a quick differentiator about what each of them is?
Yeah, so I mean, if your role primarily involves data munging or data visualization or kind of putting together a dashboard, then you're primarily a data analyst. And when you add predictive modeling or machine learning or basically any other advanced statistical methods to the list of things that I just said, you become a data scientist.
Okay.
And data engineering is, you don't need stats background for data engineering. So essentially data engineers create data for us, like data scientists, to consume.
Okay.
So like I said, we work with a lot of data tables that's housed in, let's say, AWS or Google Cloud. But who creates those data sets? It's the data engineers who creates the data sets for us. They validate. So there are many different data sources where you need to aggregate the data into a usable form, right? And you need to do data validation, do data quality checks, those kind of stuff. So this is the kind of stuff that data engineers work on.
Okay.
Like building data pipelines, those kind of things. But they don't do any statistical analysis, modeling. They don't work on data visualization.
Okay.
So those who are data scientists, they're naturally data analysts. But those who are data analysts, they may not be data scientists.
Okay.
Necessarily. So that's
Got
the
it.
primary difference.
So both data analysts and data scientists would need statistical background then?
Extent would vary. Like data scientists would need a more thorough statistical background.
Okay.
But data analysts would be like, they could get away with minimal stats knowledge.
Okay. So now that we understand a little bit better, or now that I understand a little better about what a data analyst does, scientist does, and engineer does.
Yes.
So let's say I'm a college student who is going to graduate in a couple of months. Which of these roles are more accessible for a fresher?
I would say data analyst.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think based on my experience for data scientist, you would need a lot more thorough statistical knowledge. And like I said, with data analyst, you would need primarily like visualization, munging, which you can learn relatively quickly. But to build a thorough statistical background, you need to invest quite a bit of time.
Okay.
And with data engineering too, like you need a lot more proficiency in SQL and like Airflow to orchestrate the data pipelines and all those other things. So if you ask me to pick which is the most accessible, I would say data analyst.
Got it. నువ్వు కూడా పైథాన్ నేర్చుకుని మార్కెట్లో ఒక మంచి జాబ్తో సెటిల్ అవుదాం అనుకుంటున్నావు అంటే జాయిన్ సైనోహబ్స్ పైథాన్ డెవలప్మెంట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్. మోర్ దాన్ 10,000+ స్టూడెంట్స్ ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ తీసుకుని వాళ్ళ ఫస్ట్ జాబ్ ఆర్ ఇంటర్న్షిప్ క్రాక్ చేసుకుని వాళ్ళ పైథాన్ కెరియర్ స్టార్ట్ చేసుకున్నారు. అండ్ ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లో టీచ్ చేసింది రెగ్యులర్ ఫ్యాకల్టీ కాదు, ఇండస్ట్రీ ఎక్స్పర్ట్స్ ఫ్రమ్ సర్వీస్ నవ్. అంటే మోర్ దాన్ 15 years ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ ఉన్న డెవలపర్, అండ్ తను ఎన్నో పైథాన్ బుక్స్ కి ఆథర్ కూడా. అండ్ ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లో ప్రతి ఒక్క కాన్సెప్ట్ కూడా నువ్వు బేసిక్స్ నుంచి అడ్వాన్స్ లెవెల్ దాకా నేర్చుకుంటావు. సో ఇప్పుడు దాకా నీకు కోడింగ్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ లేకపోయినా, నువ్వు కంప్యూటర్ సైన్స్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ కాకపోయినా కూడా యూ విల్ స్టిల్ బి ఏబుల్ టు లెర్న్ దిస్ ప్రోగ్రామ్. సైనోహబ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ కి బయట ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ కి ఉన్న మెయిన్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి అంటే ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ అండ్ సపోర్ట్. లెట్స్ సే బయట ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఒకటి తీసుకున్న తర్వాత నీకు కోర్స్ డౌట్ వచ్చింది అనుకుందాం, హెల్ప్ అవసరం ఉంది అంటే ఎవ్వరూ సపోర్ట్ చేయరు. వెరాజ్ సైనోహబ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లోపల నేర్చుకుంటప్పుడు చిన్న డౌట్ వచ్చింది అంటే యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ డెడికేటెడ్ మెంటర్ సపోర్ట్. అంటే ఒక ఫ్రెండ్ లాగా నీతో గూగుల్ మీట్ లో జాయిన్ అయ్యి 1-to-1 సెషన్ లోపల నీకున్న డౌట్స్ అని క్లియర్ చేస్తారనమాట. అండ్ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ విషయానికి వస్తే బయట ఉన్న ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ లోపల వెరీ రెగ్యులర్ బోరింగ్ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ ఉంటాయి. వేరే సైనోహ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లోపల యూల్ హ్యావ్ ఎక్సైటింగ్ టెక్నికల్ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ లైక్ మల్టీప్లేయర్ గేమ్ కానీ లేదంటే లెర్నింగ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ సిస్టమ్ కానీ. సో ఇలాంటి ప్రాజెక్ట్ ని రెజ్యూమేలో యాడ్ చేసుకున్నావు అంటే ఎటువంటి కంపెనీకి వెళ్ళినా కూడా నువ్వు ఈజీగా సెలెక్ట్ అయిపోతావు. ఈ వీడియో చూస్తున్న వాళ్ళకి మాత్రమే ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఒక ఎక్స్క్లూజివ్ ప్రైస్ లో అవైలబుల్ ఉంటుంది. మోర్ దెన్ 90% డిస్కౌంట్ ఉన్న కోర్స్ లింక్ కింద డిస్క్రిప్షన్ లో అండ్ పిన్ కామెంట్స్ లో పెడతాను. సో ఇండస్ట్రీలో బెస్ట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ విత్ బెస్ట్ సపోర్ట్ అట్ పాకెట్ ఫ్రెండ్లీ ప్రైసెస్. సో లేట్ చేయకుండా నువ్వు పైథాన్ లో కెరియర్ స్టార్ట్ చేసుకుందాం అనుకుంటున్నావు అంటే ఇప్పుడే కింద లింక్ క్లిక్ చేసి ఎన్రోల్ ఇన్ టు ద ప్రోగ్రామ్. నువ్వు ఎన్రోల్ అయిపోగానే క్రెడెన్షియల్స్ అండ్ కోర్స్ యాక్సెస్ నీ ఈమెయిల్కి వచ్చేస్తాయి. సో యూ కెన్ స్టార్ట్ లెర్నింగ్ ఇమీడియట్లీ. సో ఇప్పుడే కింద లింక్ క్లిక్ చేసి స్టార్ట్ యువర్ పైథాన్ జర్నీ టుడే. సో if we were to do a small thought experiment in terms of breaking down individual roles and responsibilities based on a cricket circumstance.
Okay.
Now, what would an analyst do in a cricket match? What would a scientist do? And what would an engineer do?
So, data analyst, you brought in a good analogy in cricket. That's interesting. A data analyst, so you are thinking in terms of like what each player would do or something?
Or let's say I think in this process data engineer would come first, wherein he would be monitoring the score and he would be adding all the score into a database.
Yes, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, so if you're looking from the standpoint of, let's say, ESPN, they keep track of the scores like in an IPL match. So the data that they're collecting, like ball by ball, how, like what's the score and who bowled the ball and other things, who was playing. So they need to maintain that data in a database, in some kind of a structured form. So that's something that a data engineer would do.
Okay.
And let's say you have to do some kind of a dashboarding thing. It's like who scored what, in what area somebody scored, like in what part of the ground they scored most of their runs. Those kind of visuals, I would say a data analyst would do. But let's say if you have to predict, so you add some predictive analytics component to it. So let's say you have been tracking Josh Butler. Then you see that, okay, given his form and the scores in the past 10 matches, how likely is it that he would score 100 in the next match?
Okay.
So then you would do some kind of predictive analytics, then that will fall under the realm of data science.
Okay, got it. So during this match happens, they do present few projected scores.
Yes.
That also comes under part of a...
Yes, kind of. It's part of a predictive modeling. You're predicting something that will happen in the future based on what you have seen in the past. So,
got it.
So yes.
Got it. Okay. And also there is one more common problem when you're dealing with data, which is sometimes there are inconsistencies with data. So these inconsistencies, they call the process cleaning, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, exactly.
So does the data cleaning part also come under the engineering part, or?
So there are various different levels of data cleaning.
Okay.
You know, when you are aggregating things from multiple different sources, data may not be formatted the same way. Right? So you need to reshape the data. There might be some unstructured information living in a, let's say, Excel workbook or like some PDFs, and then you need to aggregate it into some structured format that you can keep your data in some, let's say, BigQuery table. So those kind of things data engineers handle for you.
Okay.
But even after the data comes in, you still, let's say, you still need to. So let's say there is a field where it's encoding the color.
Sorry?
So there's a field where you are capturing the color. There could be many different levels for color.
Okay.
But when you want to fit a model or when you want to group things, then you need to create some buckets. So that's something that you still need to do. Or maybe another better example would be, let's say you have a column which has multiple states, and you want to create a region out of states.
Okay.
So that's something that a data engineer might not do for you. They'll keep the data granular enough so that you can do more aggregation if you want to. So let's say I want to use the state column, I want to create a region column. So those kind of additional layer of, you can call it cleaning or feature creation, those kind of things, and an analyst will still have to do.
Got it. So an engineer responsibility would be primarily in terms of handling or managing the data for both analysts and scientists to work upon.
Yes.
Okay. And as we look at trends or as we look at the hiring patterns of companies, we see more and more positionings opening up for data scientists. So why is this role particularly getting popular?
If you think about data, like what is data? a data is simply a piece of information about something. And what do we do with data? We take data and we kind of gather insights from it, right? Now, given the volume of the data that's becoming available over the past 10, 15 years and the level of granularity at which is becoming available, it has unlocked a different level of insights which was unimaginable before. And now it has given companies to explore things in ways that was unimaginable. So a lot of companies are trying to tap into the domain to maintain their competitive edge.
Okay.
So every company has some form of data, and they need people to help them drive businesses of growth, maximize their profit. That's why you see a lot of roles opening in many companies.
Okay, got it. So I heard this particular analogy. You can correct me if I'm wrong in this,
Yeah.
but what people do is, or what companies think is, when they have the data, it is usually assumed that there are a lot of answers in the data.
Yes.
You need people to bring out those answers.
Yes, exactly.
So a lot of key learnings or failures or mistakes that the company is doing, all of it is hidden in the data.
Yes, it's
Unless and until people like you would not bring those things out.
yes, exactly. So like there's plenty of information, but what do you do with that information? So that's where a data scientist or an analyst or engineer comes in different capacities to help the company extract meaningful pieces out of that.
Got it. And so for people who are watching this video, they would be interested in terms of, or they might be contemplating, is data science a good career option for me? So I wanted to make two things very clear. I would like to ask you, for whom is data science a good path, and for whom data science is not a good path?
So I would say if you enjoy programming and if you don't mind sitting in front of a computer for 10, 12 hours a day, and not everybody enjoys that, and you're like, you don't mind spending like couple hours a week to like learn about new tools and techniques that are coming in the field, then I would say it's for you, because it will always keep you on your toes. This is a very fast evolving domain where new things keep on coming and tools become outdated pretty quickly.
Okay.
So you need to be familiar with what's happening currently in this domain. And so if you kind of if you have these kind of, if you have this like if you enjoy these things, then you should definitely opt for data science. But I mean, if it feels like you don't enjoy programming, you like outdoors better than indoors, you like the civil engineering kind of work, you like being out in the field, kind of overseeing the construction projects and those kind of stuff, then you should not opt for this.
Okay, got it. And also, what about the statistics part as well?
Statistics, yeah. So, I mean, you definitely need foundational statistics, and the level will vary depending on whether you are applying for a data analyst role or a data scientist role.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like any other skill. It will take you some time to master it.
Got it. So for entry level, so for people who are looking at entry level opportunities, what depth of statistics would you recommend they be familiar with?
I would say a linear model theory. Linear model theory is something like that, because ultimately wherever you will go, they will want you to build some models, like predictive models. I've seen a lot of people not focusing on fundamentals. They just know that, okay, there are 10 different machine learning algorithms, 10 different methodologies, and there are functions in Python. You put something in, it spits out something, but you don't know what's coming out of the function. You don't know about the assumptions of the model, like is this data violating those assumptions? Is this model even appropriate for what you're modeling? You don't know those things. You know, there is a function, I will type in something. Obviously, there is a saying like garbage in, garbage out. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend focusing on fundamentals more. And these things, these are just syntaxes or like like programming implementation of these mathematical concepts. But I would definitely start with linear model theory.
Okay.
Because that's the foundation over which all the other modeling is based upon.
Okay, got it. And how difficult is it to learn, and how long it might take for a complete beginner?
I would say 6 months to a year should be good enough.
Okay.
To at least have the foundation that you can do meaningful projects.
Got it. And this is for data scientist
Yeah, for data scientists. Yeah, if you are more in the data analyst side, then I think 6 months should be good.
And when we are talking about a student's mindset,
Yeah.
right? In general, when I see people aiming for a software job, a job in the IT industry, they have a preconceived notion that, if I'm not from software, if I'm not from computer science background, there is no way I can get a job in software.
I would say that's not true because anybody can foray into this domain of data science or software engineering. I think the biggest thing that you need is like intellectual curiosity, and then like invest some time to build the fundamentals, and just build some portfolios to demonstrate that you have the necessary skills. So even if, let's say, like my background is in civil engineering.
Okay.
So I started out as a civil engineer back in 2010. I did my bachelor from IIT Roorkee, graduated in 2014. Earlier, like I used to fear programming.
Okay.
So that's why I went into civil engineering thinking, because in civil engineering, you can see things physically. In programming, there's a lot of things that's abstract, which you can't see in a real world. So that's what I thought, maybe civil is something that I could relate. And I used to fear programming. I don't know for.
And the thing that you mentioned, I think that is also a right way to approach programming as well. If I am just learning C for the sake of it, it will look abstract.
Yeah.
But unless and until I know where I'm going to use it, that is when that curiosity is going to build up.
Yes.
Initially, just like you mentioned, I was also very scared of programming, or I did not understand why this particular thing was happening at all. I think post my intermediate, my father got me into a coaching center where I had 2 months of C and C++ programming training.
Okay.
I hated those 2 months. But then once I joined college, I got into web development, wherein whatever I was writing on my terminal, it was being shown in the browser. As soon as I understood the correlation, whatever I'm writing, this is the output. And I think that's the same for data analytics with you as well, right?
Yes.
So whatever changes that you're doing, you're able to see a visualization of what you're doing.
Yes.
That builds a natural curiosity.
That helps. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you mentioned about this particular path, you talked about 3 things in particular.
Yes.
One is having a natural curiosity.
Yes.
Second thing is building a proper fundamental.
Yes.
Third one is building a portfolio.
Yes.
I want to just break that down step by step. So for a student to have a mindset of having the natural curiosity, can you just elaborate a little bit more about that?
Natural curiosity is like, let me give you a very personal example. So I think right before I came here, so where I stay currently in the US, in Ames, Iowa, in summer days are very long. So like sun doesn't set until like 9 or 9:30 p.m.
Okay.
So it's very unusual. Like I'm from central part of India, like Jharkhand, where you won't find sun up in the sky until like 9 p.m. So I thought, okay, can I create a visualization where I could type in any location on Earth, and it gives me the sunrise, sunset time, and the length of day.
Okay.
And create a visualization like how long the days are in summer, how long the days are in winter, and see how symmetric it looks from where I am in India versus how distorted it looks for, let's say, where I live currently in Ames, or if I go more towards the poles, then how distorted things look. Because I also went to London once,
Okay.
and I saw that during winter, sun sets by like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. and the days are very short. So this is what I'm talking about, the curiosity. You see things around yourself and you ask yourself, hey, this is really interesting. Can we use data to explore it and visualize it? So that's the curiosity I'm talking about.
Got it.
And then comes the fundamentals. Like, okay, I know that this is something in my mind I wanted to build. And then you have fundamentals like, okay, I need to use some programming languages to scrape data from online. And like, once I have the data, how would I create a visual? Like, you need some kind of fundamentals in terms of programming to translate data, like scrape data and translate the data into insights. And then once you have that, now if I keep it in my local system, nobody else is seeing what I built, right? Then comes the third aspect, where you share what you built with the world. So let's say if I am the recruiter and a guy's applying for a data science or an analyst role, I would very much like to see some kind of a project that they have done somewhere, hosted somewhere online, like say GitLab or GitHub. That will, like, saying that I know data visualization or data cleaning versus having a project where you can clearly demonstrate that, hey, this is how I went from raw data to a finished product. Gives me a lot more credibility about the candidate than just looking for keywords on a resume like, hey, I know cleaning or visualization. So these are the key pieces that I was talking about that a newcomer should do.
Got it. So for my understanding, so are Python and R two different tools to do the same thing, or do they have different purposes?
I think for what I generally do, I think you can accomplish with both.
Okay.
So like, let's say if you are starting as a data analyst and you want to create a visualization, then you have visualization libraries like ggplot2 in R or matplotlib in Python. Or like, for example, if you want data manipulation, you have a dplyr in R, you have pandas in Python. So you have equivalent kind of packages in both. So you can pick either. But yeah, like I said, Python is more general purpose. So it's used for many other things besides what R is being used.
Okay, got it. So for most people starting out, for them Python would be a recommended option.
Yes.
And during our conversation, you mentioned that active part of your work revolves around R programming and as well as some part of it around Python.
Yes.
So for a student who is completely starting fresh with no programming experience, how would they go about, step-by-step path?
What I used to, so like I said, when I started my master's, I didn't know anything about programming. Frankly, I built all my programming skills while I was doing my master's and PhD. So my first point of learning was like LinkedIn Learning or a data camp. These are the two major online platforms that I used to kind of learn about these tools. And I would say the choice between R and Python mostly stems from whether you are coming from the stats domain or you're coming from a computer science domain.
Okay.
But if you talk in terms of employability, then I would say Python is something that a lot of companies look for. I mean, you will still find companies looking for R skills, but Python has become the most dominant programming language. And there is another programming language that I would recommend watching out for is Julia. So Julia is another programming language that's, I think, it's being developed at MIT and it's mainly designed with data science in mind.
Okay.
And what happens in Python and R is that you write or you use R and Python for its syntactical convenience because it's like you don't need to write verbose code. But behind the scenes, what's happening is being translated into, for example, C for its speed. But in Julia, you write in Julia and the code also runs in the Julia environment. So there is no translation happening.
Okay.
So the code is faster and then it also has a better memory management. So it's being designed with data science in mind. So I would definitely recommend checking that one out too. But yeah, Python is the king right now.
Okay, got it. And is the code in Julia still as compact as Python and R? Or is
yes. It provides the convenience of Python and R in terms of syntax, but it also gives speed boost and memory optimization.
So for the most part of the conversation, when we're talking about data analyst or data scientist, we are talking about statistics a lot. But regular colleges in India don't really focus much on statistics. So if I'm a student who is looking to learn on his own, how do I get better at statistics?
So I would recommend there is a book called it's a Intro to Statistical Learning.
Okay.
It's like a Bible of machine learning.
Okay.
Like people who are getting into this field, everybody has a copy of that book.
Okay.
And it's very authoritative for the field. So I would recommend picking, and it's publicly available. It's like freely available.
Okay.
So anybody who is trying to get into it, they can pick up the book and learn through the concepts. So that would be the best starting point for me.
Okay.
I would say.
Got it. And I've also noticed that programs in masters, especially outside of India, focus heavily in terms of statistics. They have particular dedicated curriculums for it. So are there any similar alternatives here in India that students can opt in?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about Indian Statistical Institutes when I just finished my high school because I'm from a small town in Jharkhand and people around me are mostly like business people or some engineers, like core engineers, like civil mechanical. So I never got introduced to Indian Statistical Institute. When I went to Iowa State and I started my master's program, they have a really prestigious stats program. And I found a lot of professors from ISI, Kolkata primarily. And then out of curiosity, I checked and I'm like, oh, wow, it's very prestigious. And had I known about it, I may have tried writing entrance exam for that too. So ISI, and I think it's in Bangalore, it's in Hyderabad. So yeah, if you want to pursue maybe advanced career in stats in India, then you can definitely look for these options. These are really great institutions.
So now, let's say I'm in my second year or third year or where I'm in, I want to become a data scientist.
Okay.
So can you walk me through what timeline it would be? How many months would it take for me to become a data scientist, and how do I categorize my time?
So yeah, I would say I have seen some of my friends who don't come from the computer science background. They spend about 6 months to an year to build that foundational knowledge that allowed them to get entry-level roles in data science. So I would say about the same timeline. And obviously you can expedite things if you're putting like somebody who is investing 8 hours a day into learning these concepts versus somebody who is just casually learning, spending an hour or two. Obviously their timelines will differ. But generally, if you're serious about getting into this field and you can commit to like 4 or 5 hours a day, especially when you don't have any foundational knowledge, then you should have enough to get an entry-level role in like 6 months to a year.
6 months to 8. Okay, 6 months to 1 year. So of these 6 months, how do you recommend I bifurcate it? How much would I spend on R or Python? How much on statistics?
So it depends on what your career goals are. Like for example, if you want to become an analyst, I would try to spend like 80-20, where 80 would be like programming specific. Like I would try to learn about like R or Python and see what packages they have available for data manipulation and data visualization and those kind of stuff. Just take some, like the best way to learn is with practice. Like you won't become a master chef by just watching MasterChef. You need to get your hands dirty. You need to actually cook things. So there are so many publicly available data sets that are out there. So you just go online, find some data sets that excites you. You know, some people are very passionate about soccer. Some people are very passionate about cricket. There are so many data sets available. Like I was talking, like you asked me in the beginning about Sachin's stats. If you are Sachin's fan, you can go download data set and see, can you create a new field? Can you transform the variable by, let's say, simple thing like log transform a variable, do all sorts of things. So in that process, you will learn about how, there is a CSV file. How do I import it into R? How do I create a new field? How do I create a bar chart? So I would invest most of my time, if I'm aspiring for a data analyst, like I said, it's out of the three, I feel like it should be the easiest one to get into. Then I would invest most of my time there. And then 80% is this and 20% would be like stats.
Okay.
And like I said, I would try to build the foundational knowledge of the linear model theory. So linear model theory, it includes like linear algebra and calculus and other fundamental stats concepts. But it's the foundational knowledge that you would need modeling wise, and you can build upon it gradually. But if you're aiming more for like a data science role, then I would try to split maybe 50-50, where I would try to learn the programming 50% and then also invest my time in stats more.
Got it.
So
apart from programming and statistics, are there any beginner machine learning models that a student has to be familiar with before getting into this domain?
In terms of machine learning, I would say I would primarily focus on, like I said, with like generalized linear models or linear model theory. And once you have a good grasp of the fundamentals, then everything builds upon the previous one.
Okay.
So once you know how kind of a linear model works, and logistic regression is an extension of linear models. So you can use linear models for simple linear or multiple linear for like regression tasks. You can use logistic regression for, let's say, classification tasks. And once you have the fundamentals of like how you can use simple linear or multiple linear for regression, use logistic for classification, then you can build upon and do more advanced things like support vector machines or like random forests and all those kind of things. But that's something that you will gradually learn. But once you have the fundamentals, and there are a lot of competing models. In the machine learning library, I just named only two. For example, there could be like gradient boosting machines, decision trees. But like once you have the fundamentals, which is like the linear and the logistic, then you can quickly, and the generalized linear model. So generalized linear model essentially encompasses both the linear and logistic. Once you have this good grasp on this generalized linear modeling framework, then you can quickly extend it to the other advanced models.
Got it.
People get really excited about like when they write in their resume, they write all the possible modeling frameworks that's out there in the machine learning library. That hey, I know this. But instead of writing all those, I would rather kind of focus more on building the fundamentals, which is like once you understand linear and logistic really, really well, you can quickly extend these things to other larger modeling frame. But the other aspects of model validation and splitting your data that you use for building prediction model, it will be universally applied to all the modeling frameworks.
So in your role or in your day-to-day work, is SQL involved?
So like I said, SQL is primarily used by data engineers to query multiple tables and kind of pull in information into one large table that we consume. But yes, I mean, sometimes you may need to directly interact with the tables and SQL will help you. And there are some translational libraries. For example, let's say like I'm an active R user. So anytime I need to interact with a BigQuery table, then there's a package called like dbplyr.
Okay.
So you write your R code.
Okay.
You establish a connection with your database. You write your R code. It does the SQL translation behind the scenes for you and fetch the result. Then I just use in my other workflows.
Got it.
So I mean, yes, but that may not produce the most efficient piece of SQL when it comes to kind of cost cutting and all, but it gets the work done.
Okay.
So I would say SQL is important, but not to the extent that it is important for a data engineer per se.
So while you were discussing about how to get into data analyst, you mentioned about 80% of programming and 20% of statistics. But there is also a couple of other terms that we hear very commonly, which is PowerBI, Tableau, Excel, because a majority of the work is visualization. So how relevant are these in today's day and age, and how should a student focus on these tools as well?
Yeah, so I mean, the tools that you just said, like Power BI or Tableau or like Google Looker dashboards. So these are drag and drop tools. You don't necessarily need any programming skills to work with these. You just, like for example, I have worked with Tableau too during my PhD. You just establish connection with your, let's say you have a CSV data. You just connect it to that tool, and then you can drag things here and there, and it automatically creates those visualizations. So it's like a no-code solution for those visualizations, and these tools are also very powerful and popular. So I mean, and like I said, like personally, I prefer more code-based solutions. But for data analysts, those who are looking for like not a code-heavy solutions, they can also use Tableau and Power BI. These two are very heavily used in the industry.
Okay. So to become a data analyst, that is also another path that people can choose.
Yes.
Okay. So either they can go the libraries with Python or R, wherein they can have a lot of minute control over the data and the visualization that they want. Or they can have a much more tool-based approach.
Yes, tool-based approach also.
So we talked about data analyst being the more approachable one of all three segments.
Yes.
So is it like impossible for a student as a fresher to get into data science, or is it usually reserved for experienced people?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible. I mean, if you're determined to get into that, you can definitely get into that. But like I said, the biggest thing, like I've seen a lot of students chasing certifications. That, hey, I would add 10 different certificates. I mean, I used to be like that too. In the beginning, like, hey, I will do 10 certifications and that will boost up my resume and I'll have a much better chance. But over the years, I've come to this realization is people, like recruiters, don't care much about these certifications. All they care about is your skills.
Okay.
And if you can demonstrate your skills through some personal projects that you may have done and you have kept it publicly so that other people like recruiters can take a look at it, that gives you much more advantage when it comes to recruiting than having 10 certifications.
Got it. And also projects would be more looked upon than certifications.
Yeah, and another thing I would recommend is novelty. There are some publicly available data set. There are hundreds of students doing similar set of analysis, and you just join the bandwagon and do the exact same analysis. Then, you need to find some novelty and think about it. Like that's where the curiosity comes in. Oh, there are 10 different personal projects that I've seen online people doing. Can I do something else? Like, can I create something that someone else has not created yet?
Got it. And can you talk to us about one of your favorite hobby projects that you did, which is not part of your work, which you really enjoyed the most?
Oh, recently? Recently, I think in January, I went to Hawaii.
Okay.
So Hawaii terrain is this like a lot of elevation and there's dips, and I saw really cool maps of like elevation in Hawaii. So when I got back from Hawaii, I thought, okay, can I recreate those maps? So there were some paper maps that I found. As a tourist, when you visit an area, you found all these maps, and they're like really cool looking maps. So I thought, oh, can I recreate these maps through R, for example? So when I came back, I like downloaded some elevation data from the state government GIS portal from Hawaii, cleaned it, created those maps, and put it up on GitHub, and then shared it on LinkedIn. So like I said, this is what I'm talking about, the curiosity and novelty. This thing didn't exist, so I was able to kind of load the data, think about how would I visualize it, what color gradient I would use to kind of give them to maximize the impact of like whatever I wanted to convey to the users, to maximize the impact of those visualizations. So this is what I did recently.
Got it. So in terms of people applying or the assignments that you grade, especially for entry-level roles, what are the common mistakes that you see people do?
Common mistakes, I would say maybe sometimes people take a more complicated path. They think that sometimes complicated solutions look like it's very long, and people think that when the other person sees it, they know that, oh, there's a depth that the person has in terms of knowing the key aspects. But I think simplicity is the key. Like a simple solution that gets the work done is always better than the complex solution, because complex solutions are it's very hard to maintain. Like if you think about the programming or the code base, if you have a piece of code that's very complex, then it will be very hard for you to maintain. But if it's the same thing is being accomplished by a kind of a smaller piece of code or like a more efficient piece of code, then that's much more maintainable. So I think people tend to go for complexity rather than simplicity.
While in college, especially while we were writing our semester exams, there was this common myth that used to run around. Let's say we are not prepared for the exam. They used to tell us, go there. They used to give us a 32 pages answer sheet.
Okay.
They used to say from the first line till the last line, fill all the 32 pages.
Yes.
And you come out of the exam, you pass naturally.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that I've seen a lot of people doing.
So another thing what we do usually is whenever we have people from the industry like you, we try to talk about their day in their careers. Because when I was in college, whenever I looked at software engineers, it used to be a big surprise for me. What do they do in the office from morning to evening? Right? Do they keep writing code? So can you just walk us through what does a typical day look like?
So a typical day revolves around solving a business problem.
Okay.
So like everything that you're trying to do at your company, you're trying to solve some problem that helps the business. So it's mostly revolves around solving some business problem that the senior leadership assigns you. And like it follows the theme of the life cycle of a normal data science project, where like you need to talk to a data set using either R or Python. You do some kind of exploratory data analysis to develop a deeper understanding of the data set, build some cool charts. Charts is something that impresses leaders a lot more than some summary stats tables. Like everybody likes looking at cool visualization. And then you build some kind of predictive model that explains the relationship between some predictors and some like target variable that they are mostly interested in. And once they have all this information, you kind of combine it into a business facing documentation. Either it could be a PowerPoint, it could be like kind of a web app that business leaders can interact and see. I mean, frankly speaking, nobody cares about like how many lines of code you wrote, what tools you use, what programming language you used. Businesses don't care. Like senior leadership, they don't care about these things. All they care about is the insights. What did you learn from the data? How can we use what you built to drive our business forward? So like web app, like I said, so like for example, I use a Shiny app in R. So it's like a Shiny is a framework for developing web apps in R.
Okay.
And now the company that maintains and builds this Shiny app, they have introduced a parallel version for Python 2, which is gaining traction. So I typically try to create those interactive visualizations or dashboard or PPT that the senior leadership can see and digest. So this is what I do in a typical day.
So now I would like to talk a little bit more about your career as a data scientist. So if you're comfortable answering, so currently what is the salary that you're getting as a data scientist?
I make about $10,000 a month.
$10,000 a month. 120K a year.
Yeah, around
Okay. Roughly. So how does it translate to Indian currency? And also what does it take for a student to get to that level?
And I mean, I can't speak for the Indian market because I've been in the US for the past 10 years. But in the US, if you do a master's, either in computer science or stats, you should be able to get somewhere around 100,000 in the Midwestern region of the US. That's among the least expensive region of the US. And as you go closer towards the coast, like either East Coast or West Coast, those are the most expensive places to live in the US. Then with your master's level education in stats or computer science, you should get around 150,000.
Okay, 150,000.
Yeah, 100 in the kind of Midwest and 150 more towards the coast.
I think based upon current conversion rates, 100,000 is approximately 80 lakhs or something.
Yeah, 85 around.
Got it. So now these numbers, when we look at them or when we just talk about them, they seem very aspirational. Like, 120, 150 basically means 1.2 CR
Yeah.
a year, right? For somebody who is in college, 1.2 crores sounds extremely aspirational. But but it depends in terms of context as well.
Yeah, it also depends on the context because the cost of living is very different in the US. So like we can't just take the number there, multiply it by 85 and then compare the two salaries because cost of living is very different. If you go towards the coast, then if you are renting a 2-bedroom apartment, then it will cost you $3,000, which is almost 2.5 lakh rupees a month. No city in India where there is no city in India where you will have to pay out like 2.5 lakhs for 2-bedroom apartment. So there's not a one-to-one comparison between the salaries between the US and here. But I think I have seen my friends who we were in civil engineering together, and they like how I moved out into data science. They also changed their career path, and they are earning somewhere around 50 lakhs in India. And I would say 50 in India is better than 80 in the US. You have a lot more financial freedom here.
Got it. So an integral part of jobs, which a lot of people not focus as much as technical, are also soft skills, right? I feel soft skills are also equally important as technical.
I mean, if I have to say, soft skills actually matter more than technical skills.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to climb up the ladder, because not like communication is the key, both oral and written. Because let's say you did a ton of work, you built really great thing, but you can't communicate it with the senior leaders. Like when you show up and when you have to explain what exactly did you do and how does it drive the business forward. And if you're clueless or if you cannot get your message across in an easy to understand manner, then I mean they would think that, oh, I don't know what you did, and all your hard work will go in vain. So communication, I would say, is like even matters even more than your technicals, because some people who may not be as technically good as the other person, but if they can communicate really well and get their message across, they will go up faster than you, because because if the senior leadership understands what you are saying, you would think that, oh wow, he has done a great job, even if the other person did a lot more hard work than the other person but couldn't communicate. So these are both the written and the oral, and it's not just tied to data engineering. It just applies generally to any other field in life, but it just happens here too. Like the communication is a big part of your job.
Got it. And now I would like to just move on to a segment which is a lot more on everybody's mind, which is artificial intelligence, AI. So before I jump into any aspect, I would like to understand, how are you using AI in your day-to-day work?
So I mean, the way I see AI tools is just like one more tool in the data science arsenal. I mean, it has sped up my programming. Like sometimes when I get stuck, let's say I need to write some regular expressions to extract some string components. Earlier, I used to scan multiple answers from Stack Overflow, but now ChatGPT helps me get to that part much more quickly. Or if I need to search for some business glossary terms, so we have an internal AI tool that we use internally. We don't use the publicly available ChatGPT platform because there are strict rules against like putting your internal private data into public portals. So we do have an internal AI model that we use. Like if I need to find some business glossary terms, some state-specific regulations, I can quickly ask the ChatGPT version of the internal tool, and it gives me that answer. So it has made me faster. That's it. I mean, I don't see it replacing me or any other team members, at least in the next few years.
Got it.
Totally. But yeah, I see it more as a tool that enables you to do things faster.
Got it. So is it a version of ChatGPT that is hosted locally or some other open source model, or is it something that you guys have built on your own?
No, I think they have bought some premier versions of some open source model, and then whatever data we put in, it just stays internal.
Got it.
So some paid version of those tools.
So especially I wanted to talk a little bit more on the replacement part of your role, because right from entry-level developers to experienced ones, nowadays the fear that has settled into everybody's mind is this is going to replace us eventually. And there was a recent wave of layoffs that Microsoft did, which laid off 6,000 or 7,000 people. So in that aspect, I want you to talk a little bit more about what do you think would be the future of data science, especially with AI advancing so quickly?
I think the nature of work will change. I mean, so for example, like you talked about the layoffs in Microsoft and other big tech firms. I think it's not that it's been happening only after the advent of AI. I mean, layoffs used to happen before also, right? So it's a part of the restructuring strategy of an organization. Sometimes priorities change. They need to invest their money in some other domain than what they were doing previously. So they do a little bit of restructuring, and that causes shifting and layoffs. But I think the way I see it is it will enable you to do things like faster, but then the number of tasks that you will have to work on will increase. So nature, like look throughout the history, the nature of job keeps on evolving. And, I mean, if you don't upgrade yourself, then obviously you will lose your job. But I mean, I've used those internal ChatGPT tools, and sometimes when I ask for code, the quality of the content is not that good.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes me 10, 15 tries to actually get to the correct answer.
Okay.
So I don't see it taking the entire code base and doing everything on its own. So it's just the hype that's created in social media. Not going to happen in the near future.
So another direct question would be, I mean, what you just mentioned answers a part of my question, but my question would be, what parts of your job or what responsibilities do you think a AI model would not be able to handle?
What part? It's like connecting all the business decisions to tools. I think because what businesses need, so there are a lot of nuances in the business, right? And connecting everything to like business requirements to kind of the code to implementation. It will need a lot of human thinking too. Yeah, I mean, if I ask the tool, hey, if I give this some requirements, like create a web app, It will give me some template code. But there are a lot of business knowledge that still needs to be parsed by humans before like AI can do everything on its own.
Got it. So it is good at solving small tasks, but
Yes.
in terms of larger context, it would not be able to still understand.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. How long have you been hearing that autonomous vehicles will not require human drivers?
It's been 15-20 years
Yes.
easily.
And has it happened now?
It's been a very long pipe dream for people since millennia.
Yeah. So exactly. There are people who create the hype. I'm not saying that it won't happen in the future, but not at the pace at which people just think it will happen. Like people say, oh, next year we'll have fully functional autonomous vehicle. It can just drive by itself. Yeah, in some parts of the US, I think in California, they are doing a pilot. But yeah, I mean, in some corridors it's happening, but it's not like the entire world has switched to autonomous vehicles tomorrow. So same thing. It's not that just because AI models are available, it will just replace humans tomorrow. Like I said, you may have seen this meme online that before ChatGPT, writing code would take 4 hours and debugging will be like 30 minutes. And like after ChatGPT, writing code is like 5 minutes and debugging is like 4 hours.
It's almost like a tool that speeds up your workflow more than replaces your entire.
Yes, exactly. That's how I view it, at least in the near future.
Got it. And one more personal journey of yours which I would like to touch upon is you mentioned that you're from a small place in Jharkhand.
Yes.
And then you went on to crack IIT Roorkee.
Yes.
Now, cracking IIT is an aspiration for every single Indian, irrespective. So, can you just walk us through the journey? How did you start? From where did you start? What was your locality like?
So I come from a very tiny town in Jharkhand. It's called, the city is called Saria.
Okay.
The biggest city that people may have heard of is like Dhanbad. I did my schooling in a place called Kodarma. A place that people may be most familiar with is Jhumri Tilaiya.
Okay.
So I did my 10th there, and then I became friends with some other people, and they were going to Kota, Rajasthan to prepare for engineering. I just tagged along. Like many other people, you don't think too much. Everybody's becoming an engineer, so you become an engineer. And this is how I went there, got into civil engineering program. But then gradually over the years, like I said, in terms of career opportunities in better pay and more exciting projects, I moved more into this analytics.
Okay.
And like after I finished my bachelor's, I worked for Coal India for a few months. The kind of projects that I was doing there was not intellectually challenging at all. Like I had to keep log of which housing units need maintenance.
Okay.
Or like creating bidding forms and all those kind of things, which I didn't think that you need a bachelor's degree to do all kind of things. So I just moved to US and then did my 2 masters, like a master's in transportation data analytics, in master's in stats and PhD in data analytics, like transportation data analytics. And just journey continues.
Got it. And on the same note, while you were getting into data science, how was your first interview experience like?
My first interview experience, so I interviewed for an internship role at another insurance company called Liberty Mutual Insurance. It's based out of Boston, Massachusetts. So I think I had maybe, I don't recall now, but maybe 4 or 5 rounds of interviews. The first one was mostly behavioral, where they just wanted to know if I have interest or like, what is it that I do here? Not technical, just mostly behavioral. Then there was a coding interview where somebody called me in. Not exactly coding was maybe the third one. The second one was the technical interview where somebody called me and they asked me a lot of stats questions. Like, hey, do you know about this? Do you know about another thing? So they asked me a bunch of technical questions like, hey, do you know about multicollinearity, or do you know about like overfitting and all those kind of stuff, like very stats related concepts. And then once I did good on that, then they gave me a coding test. And then once I did that coding test, then they invited me to their headquarters in Boston. And I took my coding test solution. And then we had a lot of interviews lined up from 8 a.m. to like 5 p.m. where I had to meet with many different people. Some were technical, some were behavioral.
Okay.
So yeah, we had to go through many different rounds of interviews. It was like little scary but exciting.
Got it. So was it the first job that you applied and you cracked, or were there opportunities where you missed before that?
No, before that I was mostly like a grad student.
Okay.
So only in 2019 is when I applied for internship, and then COVID hit. So we were just all locked. And then after I finished is when I started this job here at American Family.
Okay, got it. So, so before Liberty Mutual, were there rejections or?
So yes, obviously, I mean, Liberty Mutual, I was not actively looking for internship. Maybe I didn't apply to too many places, but yes, I did have rejection. But I think when I was actually looking for full-time roles, I think I applied for more than 100 jobs. And there was one that was actually converted into a full-time role.
Okay.
So, I mean, I used to get disheartened sometimes. But then when I talked to my professor and friends around, they always said that it's about one yes and not 100 no's. So I kind of kept on trying, applying. And in the US, there are a lot of other hurdles besides your qualification. There are visa restrictions.
Okay.
Not a lot of companies take you because you would need a sponsorship being an international student. But you need to just keep applying, push harder, and then wait until you get a positive result from someone. Got
it. Especially during that stage and after your graduation and your first job, there is this period of pure anxiety that students go through.
Yes. I mean, I didn't know whether I would get a job because the job market was not that good because of COVID. So I had also talked to my professor that if I'm not able to find a job, will you be able to keep me for a few more months? So he agreed to that. But thankfully, right about when I was right at the time when I was about to graduate is when I was able to find the job. Okay. So that worked out. But yeah, it was very stressful.
Got it. So for students who are currently in that stressful period, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to give them?
I mean, keep trying like any other thing in life. Some people reach their destination faster than others. But that does not mean that if someone got at the end point faster than you, then you should just quit. Like everybody has a different destination, different journey. So just keep pushing.
Got it. That's a very beautiful message. So for any parent in India, if you look at their top wish list that they have, one is IIT, the second one would be government job.
Government job.
So from your experience, so government job versus private one. So for students who are confused, what kind of advice would you give?
I mean, maybe the experience could vary quite a bit by different government jobs. Like maybe Coal India didn't work out for me. Maybe there are some government jobs where there could be some exciting projects. But generally speaking, from my experience, talking to my friends who are still working for different government agencies, private companies, they keep you more challenged. Like there you have much larger opportunities in terms of growth. And in government jobs, I've seen a lot of people becoming too comfortable. And job security is a big factor because once you know that nobody's going to take away your job, you kind of lose your motivation to learn new things, and everything is time bound. It's not like a merit driven. Is that, hey, one guy is performing really well, let's promote them faster than the other guy. It just happens in the order of seniority. So I mean, if you want to grow fast, if you want to keep yourself challenged, motivated, engaged, I would say look for private jobs. But I mean, if you kind of like the job security aspect of the government jobs, or like you don't want a very hectic lifestyle, you want to maintain a better work-life balance, whatever better means for you, then you can opt in for government job.
Then also one more common thing that people think about IT jobs is stress. So does your work also come along with a lot of stress?
I mean, frankly speaking, I really enjoy what I do. So I don't find it too stressful. But yeah, sometimes when there are competing projects and there are some imminent deadlines, things do become stressful. But generally speaking, not that much.
Okay.
I mean, when the team does the kind of project planning, they budget adequate time to tackle different tasks. So And if sometimes, let's say, it becomes really hectic, then you can communicate with your manager, and they're very transparent about it. So next time when they're devising those timelines, then they're mindful of the previous timeline, that last time it became really hectic for team members, so maybe let's add few more days, or maybe allocate the tasks differently. So, but otherwise in general, I have not found it too.
Got it. So you did mention that you followed a challenge on LinkedIn, which was 30-day Maps Challenge. So while you're actively participating in it, what kind of changes did you notice in your LinkedIn profile?
I mean, I found more people following me, and there's some experts in the field who I follow on LinkedIn and learn from them. They gave me some positive feedback, and that kind of motivated me that, oh wow, like I'm getting noticed. And so those kind of things. It just, like I said, it added to my motivation that, okay, I need to put more efforts, build better visualizations. I mean, I do it more occasionally. Like a lot of people do it to maybe build their followers, or maybe let's say if they are just kind of coming up in the job market, but I do it more as a hobby. But yeah, I mean, it does add to your visibility for sure. Like, and there's a lot of people on LinkedIn, and you never know who sees it and when a new job might come up. So it's really valuable.
Okay, got it. So in your current work, do you also actively participate in recruitment? I mean, not full time or
like not actively, but let's say if as part of our recruitment process, if there are some coding assignments that the company asks the potential candidates to take, then I review those assignments and give my manager some feedback. Hey, how good the person did on the test, and then they make the further decision. So yeah, I've been not actively involved, but in some capacity I have been.
Okay, got it. And also there is one thing that I thought about, so you can touch upon it if you are familiar with it or not. So like you mentioned in terms of CTCs or opportunities, there is also another small group of people here in India who are cracking remote jobs at US or other countries. So are you familiar with that trend?
Not necessarily. Like I have heard briefly, but I don't know the specifics about that aspect.
Got it. Because I used to be extremely fascinated. So post my graduation, we used to have technical get-togethers here in Hyderabad. They used to arrange quick workshops and sessions. I used to be very fond of going there. There used to be few group of people who were like, they were working night shifts. Especially in terms of programming, it was very fascinating. I thought, why are these guys working night shifts in programming? Then they used to tell me that, I'm not working for companies in India, I'm working for companies in US. Where I'm getting paid US dollars for my time.
But I don't know how that works out. Like, can they do it legally?
I think so, yeah.
Because like how do they find those remote opportunities?
There are, so I think this was pre-COVID. So I think it should be even more now. But there are companies that hire exclusively for remote developers. So my personal opinion, there was this one particular company I really admired, which was called as X-Team. Which I really wanted to get into at that time. So they were hiring only for remote developers, and they were like, you work from anywhere, it doesn't matter. Your salary ranges would be anywhere that we pay for a regular guy in US or anywhere else. And they used to, because it was remote, they could afford a lot more perks than what we used to get, when we go to companies in office works. And data science or analyst are such an industry agnostic and fascinating roles, because you can see their applications across any industry. Right? Like we were just talking about cricket and the stats that they show, every single match, irrespective of national, international, they have to have that. Medical, financial.
So I think when I first went to the US and started like learning about the programming and stats and other things, one thing that was always on my mind was that I wanted to get back to India. And like if I just went along with transportation engineering, so there are a lot of transportation based companies out in the US and they're really exciting projects, but I thought that maybe I would not have the same level of career if I stick to transportation. So I wanted to become like industry agnostic. So that's why I started picking up these skills, because these skills have relevance in the US as well as in India.
Got it.
So that will give me employment opportunities here in India too. Like you said, it's a general skill that you can apply broadly across many industries. And let's say I'm in insurance currently, and 5 years, 6 years down the line, if I feel like it's becoming saturated and I need to go into a different industry, I could take my skills and go. So that was in my mind too.
Got it. So off topic, I have another question which you talked about. You mentioned that you were pursuing structural engineering for a while. Then you figured that, maybe this is not what I want to do. I want to try my leg in data science. So when you're taking that decision, whom did you approach or how did you make that decision? Because as students, when they're thinking about making career choices, it's very confusing.
So I think when I started my career, it was mostly driven by the packages.
Okay.
like any other student in colleges, they don't think too much about the job. They go after the job that pays the most. And I was no different back then. So like when companies come for placements in your college, you see that somebody who is in computer science and who is going into like data analyst and data scientist role, they're making, let's say, I'm just giving hypothetical number, like 20 lakh rupees in a year. And if you go in core civil engineering, then you would be earning maybe like 6 lakhs a year. And there's a considerable gap in salary. So I thought that maybe getting into this role will open up a lot more career opportunities and better pay for me. This is what motivated me to make that switch.
Got it. So when you started your journey through engineering and when you joined civil, so eventually did you enjoy civil engineering wherein you wanted to take up a job, or during the duration as well you had thoughts?
I mean, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it. But then things happened. Like I think Coal India was the biggest factor that pushed me into a different direction. Like if I had joined some better civil engineering firms where there were some really challenging projects or something that kept me motivated and excited, maybe things would have looked very different for me.
Got it.
I would have still been in civil engineering domain.
Got it. And Coal India, was it a campus placement or?
Yeah, it was a campus placement.
It was a campus placement. So what is the most exciting part of your day?
The most exciting part is getting to work with a really talented bunch of people where you can learn from each other. And that's something that I really value. I mean, you need to keep yourself surrounded with really smart people where you can learn and grow. And another thing is, like, the business problems that we handle are not like routine kind of thing, like not mundane. There are always new challenges, there are new projects, exciting projects. So, I mean, if I have to do the same thing over and over again, I will get pretty bored. So the good thing is there are always new problems, there are new challenges, new tool enhancements that I need to make in our existing tool suite. And that keeps me really excited and motivated.
Got it. You also mentioned about novel projects a student has to build to stand out. Because one particular common theme that we see, especially from my experience in dealing with full stack students, they all build an e-commerce project.
Yes.
An e-commerce project that is so widely popular, it is known across industries.
Yes.
That's how boring it is.
Yes.
Similarly, in terms of data science, for a student to stand out, can you give few examples of some good projects?
Like, let's say, like, for example, my background is in transportation. So I'm most familiar with transportation data sets. So let's say you can do some kind of a crash prediction model. Let's say build some kind of a spatio-temporal model. So if, let's say, for example, in Hyderabad, we have a record of where crashes happen. Can we build a model? Can we at least visualize through a heat map? Can we see what regions of Hyderabad record the most number of crashes? What time of the day crashes are happening? Can we build a model where we could predict with certain level of accuracy where the next crash will happen, given all this historical data in terms of the time and space? So, these kind of novel projects, like how often do you come across a project like these where they're taking the local data and building something meaningful out of it? So I'm talking about those kind of things. Or like, for example, let's say you look for examples around you. So let's say you look at the retail stores, like Reliance Digital. Can you create a map of where the Reliance Digital is in India? Like how far an average consumer is from the closest retail store? Like how can Reliance expand such that majority of the consumers are within 30 minutes of its off. So like look at situations around you and think about like how can we ask these questions from the data. This is where the curiosity comes in. You just need to look around yourself.
Got
So
it.
those kind of questions.
And it's also a very really good example, because then you also understand two things. One is how to pull data from the internet, as well as how to do the analysis as well.
Yes. So like you see the airports, like if you go 20 years, 30 years back, how many airports India had? Can we create a visualization of the evolution of the airports in India? How did they evolve? What's the average distance between the two airports? How much population do they serve? So they're like, these are general questions that you encounter in your real life. So you don't need to look far. You just look around and try to answer your questions and support it with data. Is what I was talking about in terms of novelty.
And when you're building things like these, you're never tired. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
it always keeps you excited.
Yes.
And from your experience of looking at students or working professionals, primarily people who want to get into this field, what are the common mistakes that people do that you notice the most?
Common mistakes that people do. I mean, so you mean from the resume standpoint is...
Or learning in terms of how they learn. Because I'll tell you one common mistake that people might. Students sometimes they pick up 5 to 6 different programming languages.
Okay.
I see resumes having C, C++, Python, Java, Java.
Oh, yeah.
Something like
that. I mean, sometimes people try to cover the breadth, like you said, like, because if I could write 10 different things on my resume, then it will boost up my chances of getting picked up, rather than focusing on the depth, like how deep you have your knowledge in some of the languages or tools or whatever. So a lot of people are more focused on covering the breadth, but rather they should focus on the depth. Even if you know two, but you know those two things really, really well, that's much more valuable than just adding 7 different things just because you browsed it once or used it for an hour or so. And running after these certifications. And like I said, a lot of resumes that I've seen is where people don't put out their personal projects on like GitHub or GitLab or something like that, because then recruiters have no way to get a glimpse of your coding abilities or your analytics abilities and all those kind of things. They mostly write, I did this project, I did that project, but like how would you demonstrate to the other what you actually did? So yeah, the breadth aspect, like rather than the depth, even if you write 2 or 3 where you are like really proficient, would carry a lot more weightage than writing 10 where you just are barely familiar. And the like writing something versus like demonstrating something and running after the certifications rather than the skill. They think that, I'll have 10 certifications then I will have a much better chance, but that doesn't work that.
So now before we wrap up, for anybody who is ready to take their first step towards data science, what is your final piece of advice that you would give them to sort of like, join this company?
I mean, I've said it multiple times and I would just reiterate is this curiosity and demonstrate your skill. Like the example that I gave previously with respect to curiosity is look around yourself and ask questions. And like there are opinions and there are fact-based. Use fact-based. Think in terms of data. So when you start thinking in terms of a data and facts, you're already on the right path of becoming a data scientist, because that will be your primary job. So look around yourself, be naturally curious. It's like, for example, like look at Hyderabad Metro. Can you create a map of how did the map network started and how does it look currently? Like, can I look at the snapshot of yearly evolution of the map of how the metro transit expanded in Hyderabad? Can we look at the volume of the traffic that they're carrying? How many people are moving between this place and this place? Which are the most busiest junctions? Like, look at the things around yourself and try to and have some questions. Be naturally curious and answer those questions with the data. And then whatever you do, it doesn't matter really if it's big or small, put it somewhere publicly that demonstrates that you have the required skills. So curiosity and then a way to demonstrate your skills are the 2 main things, in my opinion, will give you a really good start if you want to get into this industry.
సో బిఫోర్ వీ ఎండ్ ద వీడియో, నువ్వు కెరియర్ గురించి సీరియస్ ఉన్నావు అంటే, పైథాన్లో ఒక మంచి జాబ్ తెచ్చుకుందాం అనుకుంటున్నావు అంటే, నేను ఇప్పుడే డిస్క్రిప్షన్లో అండ్ పిన్ కామెంట్స్ కూడా మన పైథాన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లింక్ ఇచ్చాను. గో చెక్ దాట్ అవుట్. మన సైన్ అప్ పైథాన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ తోటి నీకు వచ్చే మేజర్ అడ్వాంటేజెస్ ఏంటి అంటే, ఒకటి యూఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి లెర్నింగ్ థింగ్స్ ప్రాక్టికలీ. సెకండ్ వచ్చేసరికి డౌట్ క్లారిఫికేషన్ ఉంటుందన్నమాట. నీకు ఎప్పుడైనా డౌట్స్ వచ్చాయా, ఒక సపరేట్ పర్సన్ ఉంటారు నీకు డౌట్స్ క్లియర్ చేయడానికి. థర్డ్ థింగ్ ఇస్ యూఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు గెట్ టెక్నికల్ సర్టిఫికేషన్. అండ్ ఫోర్త్ వన్ ఇస్ యూఆర్ ఆల్సో గోయింగ్ టు బిల్డ్ 3+ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్, సో దట్ నీ రెజ్యూమే లోపల సర్టిఫికేట్ చూపించుకోవచ్చు, ప్రాజెక్ట్ చూపించుకోవచ్చు, స్కిల్ సెట్ యాడ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. అండ్ ఇవంతా కూడా డిజైన్ చేసింది మొత్తం అంతా కూడా ఒక లీడింగ్ ఇండస్ట్రీ ఎక్స్పర్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ సేల్స్ ఫోర్స్. థౌసండ్స్ ఆఫ్ స్టూడెంట్స్ మన సైన్ అప్ కమ్యూనిటీ నుంచి ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ తీసుకుని వాళ్ళ కెరీర్స్ ఆల్రెడీ సెటిల్ చేసుకున్నారు. సో నువ్వు కూడా ఒక పర్ఫెక్ట్ టైం కోసం, మంచి ముహూర్తం కోసం వెయిట్ చేయకుండా ఇప్పుడే కింద లింక్ క్లిక్ చేసి గో చెక్ దట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ అవుట్. అండ్ ఇలా ఈ వీడియో నచ్చిందంటే, ఇలాంటి వీడియోస్ ఇంకా చూడాలనుకుంటున్నావు అంటే ఇప్పుడే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ బటన్ క్లిక్ చేసేసి విల్ సీ యూ ఇన్ ద నెక్స్ట్ వీడియో.